new trends in mass media and mass media communication. McChesney will actually talk about that a whole lot in, it's about a half an hour interview, if I'm correct, about his book, Digital Disconnect. But yeah, as technologies of communications have changed, old media have had to do what? Yeah, they've had to adapt in order to remain relevant. The fact is, why the Hades should you tune into a traditional FM station when you can just stream the radio station with, what shall I say, with online content that you want to listen to? For example, why listen to the news if you can have the music that you want all of the time via Pandora radio? You know what I'm talking about? Why should you? Because what you can do is you can stream it and you can pay a tiny little bit of money to get the commercial-free version of Pandora radio. And the thing is, the traditional, FM stations have to compete with this. And if you have a society of people, and I'm not knocking you because I'm like that now too, if you have a society of people who want what they want here and now, because what? Because you're used to getting what you want here and now because it's right there. I'm getting excited about this. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, it's right at your fingertips. I mean, you missed your favorite TV show because you were out partying? Well, guess what? You can go to the on-demand section of your TV thing and you can watch it. You can DVR it ahead of time. You don't even need to carry I'm old school. I still prefer putting CDs into my CD player, and I talked about this before because I like the feel of it. I like to be able to put them in when I want to. I actually don't like the stupid Pandora radio channels. Why? Because if you select an interest, they'll lard up a whole bunch of vaguely related crap into it too. And you say, but I'm only allowed to forward through 3 of them before they lard me with 6 ads. You know what I'm talking about? I actually don't like the format, but of course our friends at Pandora Radio say, Jack, if you weren't so cheap, you could pay a little bit of money for the version that doesn't have ads on it. So you could fast forward through the garbage on your favorite channel. I also hate the algorithms on those too, sort of like the Facebook and social media algorithms. Based upon the things that you click, you give thumbs up to. How many of you have this on your car? Based upon what you click thumbs up on, it will keep playing the same song again and again. I'm like, I heard this the last time. In other words, they really don't have a really expansive playlist if you happen to be a fan of something. And you want the whole song list, not just the ones that were on radio or whatever. You know what I'm talking about, right? But yeah, PBS has had to kind of deal with a lot of this kind of stuff. And this is part of why, even on like your local PBS TV channel, they have put things into their lineup that would not have been in their lineup 20 years ago. It turns out that a lot of the good stuff that was in their lineup then is still in their lineup now. You still get Frontline documentaries, you still get Nova, you still get Nature, you get things of this nature, but there's a whole lot of junk shoved in there too. The children's programming tends to be a little bit better too, and slightly less commercial. I used to like the Wild Kratts when it was the real guys, not them as cartoon. Are you guys too old for Wild Kratts? You can't be, because my kids watched it. They were like 2 quirky brothers. I guess they weren't twin brothers, but they looked rather similar. They had a cartoon lemur that they hung out with. Yeah, zoom-a-foo! And you know, it was fun. They learned about nature, things of this nature. And they also weren't trying to what? Yeah, they weren't trying to sell anything. There wasn't a whole lot of, it wasn't like larded up with product placement ads or anything like that. And they're also, and it was good for kids. It didn't have the crappy dialogue. It wasn't trying to sexualize 10-year-olds and things of this nature. And they still have, decent programming like that. But they have had to change their format. And my wife has noted this quite a bit. with their radio format, because they have a whole lot more streaming news programs. They have less music than they used to. And granted, you used to have really good college radio on the FM dial. A lot of that has, of course, gone away. But if you like jazz, there are still some college radio stations that will play jazz, for example. And back in the day, Temple Public Radio, that had an affiliate here, you could get Pacifica Radio that did a lot of hard-hitting news stories and analysis that you wouldn't have gotten where? Wouldn't have gotten them from the network. Wouldn't have gotten them from the mainstream media, because it was rather hard-hitting and actually spoke truth to power, which most of the mainstream outlets failed to do, even though they what? Even though they claim to do it. No, they just have the two political parties slinging mud at each other. I'm admittedly caricaturing this a little bit. But anyhow. But yeah, PBS continues to be under siege. The BBC doesn't have that problem in England, even though there are some people who have threatened it from time to time. In general, the people of Britain what? They pay a TV tax, by the way, for it. They like the BBC. And a lot of the non-news programming on BBC is what? They have pretty darn good television, in my opinion. But yeah, the BBC model is one where there are tax dollars that go into funding the BBC. But who doesn't step in? Who doesn't have oversight over the programming? The government doesn't. Now, if the government did have control over it, you should rightly have a problem. Because one of the roles of the mass media, and by the way, my wife's stepdad does not like this, because he thinks that the government, or rather the media, should be patting the back of the political party that he likes. And they should be constantly what? Lambasting the evil political party. I said, no, that's basically like propaganda. So he just wants propaganda that goes his way. Unfortunately, I have parents who would like to have propaganda that goes the other way. So their attitude is a wrong-headed one too. Because you actually shouldn't want a media that plays the role of cheerleaders. The media should not be giving you your political party a constant victory parade. Am I okay with these metaphors and so forth? I hope I'm not going overboard with it. In other words, most of us believe that the media ought to do what? No, I won't say everybody believes it, but I should say people who actually want good critical thinking and also want to truly know what's going on. Cliche alert. The role of the media ought to be to speak truth to power, to hold those with power accountable. And when I talk about those with power, I'm talking about what? Government as it's sometimes called, and of course, what's that? Yeah. Yeah, government and corporations ought to be held accountable. Because these are two rather large sectors that oftentimes do what? They're more often than not in cahoots with one another. And these are two sets of massive institutions that have a lot of what over us? The potential to have a great deal of power and control over our lives. In other words, we should want a mass media and news that actually gets us accurate information about what they're up to. If they've been involved with scandals that make a difference, guess what kind of scandals really don't make a difference? Even though they're the ones the media upplays. Bill Clinton's inability to keep it in his pants. Donald Trump's inability to keep it in his pants. Now, granted, a lot of our politicians are at this kind of stuff. However, guess what? Some of us think it's a what? Because while we're talking about sex scandals, they can pass laws and regulations that have the potential to really harm the working class. In other words, a whole lot can be done behind our backs while they're talking about Stormy Daniels. Or a whole lot can be going on that they're not talking about while the media talked and talked about Monica Lewinsky. And at the end of the day, it really didn't mean squat. But of course it was good television. It was good television. And I want that to sound just as cynical as it sounds. What do I mean by it was good television? Yeah, it was entertainment. Everybody loves a scandal. Everybody loves a gimmick. In other words, it would have been perfect for the National Enquirer. It's basically like the Bat Boy, but with politicians. How many of you remember the Bat Boy? It was this thing that would always show up on the National Enquirer or the Weekly World News. It was basically just a person with a mask on that they put Mr. Spock ears on. Yeah, he's real, the Bat Boy, I've seen him, or Bigfoot, or whatever. Now, of course, these are the Barnum effect kind of things that really get people lathered up, get people excited to tune in, and so forth. But they really don't tell people what? Yeah, the news that really matters. They don't really tell people about the news that really matters. And that's part of the kind of concern here. The concern is the role of the media is oftentimes subverted by its need to get viewers. And of course, now in the internet age, when we say the need to get viewers, we mean the need to get clicks. Because clicks that's the new media situation. Because if you can't get them to click on the clickbait, you won't be able to have the evidence to say, oh, by the way, you bought an ad from us. This number of people clicked on us. Here's your invoice. So this is part of why, and I'll sound like my wife's stepbrother, the Patriot News has gone to hell. I don't know why I keep subscribing to this thing. And Penn Live is the absolute worst. All they have on is clickbait. Well, there's a couple reasons for that. Real journalists actually cost a lot of money. So instead of hiring a professional that has nice degrees and experience, you hire a bunch of people not as actual employees, but as doing contract work. And you use their content, which is oftentimes riddled with bad grammar, oftentimes factual errors, and more designed to get people to click on things than to get people informed about things, so you can get them to the ad. I'll give you my favorite example, because it was the one that my wife's stepbrother also got angry about. There was something on Penn Live's news feed about some school shooting that had happened, and because it's Penn Live, or it was like not a shooting, I guess it was like somebody put a school under siege, and the way that the clickbait put it, they made it sound like it was somewhere right in our area. I'm like, well, I have a son who's in school, and so a lot of my students have sons and daughters that are in school. It actually was happening somewhere else in the country. But because of the way they framed it, and because of the fact that it was on Penn Live, you assumed that it would have been what? Yeah, it would have been local. So I clicked on it, and what are they doing here, man? They made it sound like it was breaking news happening right here, right now, and something I ought to be concerned about it. I clicked on it, and I found out that there was nothing local about it. So yeah, its real aim was just to get me to click on it for the ad revenue. And of course, that's how a lot of it works. That's of course also and then we're unfortunate, if somebody goes, it's because I was looking at the time. With new media, You know, they want to get you to take these quizzes, you know, BuzzFeed or whatever quizzes. Of course, not all the quizzes, but most of the quizzes are what? They're utterly silly, time sucks, waste of time. But from an advertising standpoint and a revenue standpoint, they're not a waste of time for them. Because oftentimes when you click on these fun things like which Lord of the Rings character are you? Or whatever, you've seen these, right? Or which character from Lost would you be? You know, these kind of time sucks. Well, guess what they're doing with them? Well, in between the questions, of course, there's ads. That's one thing. And of course, Cambridge Analytics. In order to access some of these things, and you click through, you agree to certain things without knowing that you're agreeing to them. In other words, in many cases, they are data mining you while you're taking this Lord of the Rings quiz. I just made that one up, although that was a real quiz. But yeah, they might be data mining you while you're doing that. So they basically got you coming and going. Because the money is in ad revenues. And that's sort of one of the overarching themes of Chapter 11. There might be a conflict of interest between the stated objective of what the news media is ideally supposed to do, which is to be a thing that actually is helpful towards democracy, that is informing the public so they can think meaningfully about issues and have the information to be able to vote meaningfully and so forth. Well, the thing is, commercial interests are actually at odds with that. Because commercial interests oftentimes misdirect us. Oftentimes cover things up that powerful interests would like you not to know about and so forth. So at the end of the day, you might be a person who thinks you're incredibly well informed because you sit down and watch a lot of Fox and Friends or whatever. When in reality, you might be what some people would call a low information voter and not even know it. Because you really aren't getting the news that matters. You're getting all the news that's fit to spin. Does that make good sense? You're getting all the news that's fit to spin. And it's no wonder that people like Bob McChesney aren't very optimistic. He thinks that we need some radical changes if we want the people to actually be informed about things. Because with this model, he contends, he thought things were bad in the late 1990s. According to this analysis that he gives in the interview that you'll be listening to, things have actually gotten worse, due to new media. Things have actually gotten worse due to new media. Anyway, we are unfortunately. Hang out. One sec. Everybody got the handout for